Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Brown and I am originally from Columbia, Missouri, which is about 30 minutes away from Fulton. Although I am from Columbia, I spent most of my childhood in Memphis, Missouri, which is a small town north of Columbia. My grandpa owns a cattle farm there, so growing up, I would help him during the summers and on the weekends with everything around the farm. We would wake up at the crack of dawn, which I was never fond of, but my grandpa, being the wise man he is, would always tell me to succeed in life, you have to work hard for the things you want. They won't just be handed to you. And because the farm is an income for him, he has to take care of the livestock, even on the days that he doesn't necessarily feel like it. Once we would get up, we wouldn't have time to eat, but we would load the truck with buckets of shell corn and head to the cow pasture. Once we would get to the pasture, I would open the gate as he would drive through and then would close it after and jump back in the truck. We would then drive until we could see the majority of the cattle, and that's when the fun started. He would yell and call them and honk and say, "It's the cows, come on girls," until they were surrounding the truck. He would then slowly move forward as I would be dumping piles of corn off the side of the truck. As they were getting fed, I remember there would be cows bumping into one another and running over each other. There was so much going on at once, but I had one job, and it was to pour the piles of corn. We would usually have about 10-gallon buckets that were filled to the brim, which made about 30 piles. After I'd emptied most of the buckets, I would leave one halfway full so I could hand feed a few of my tame cows after feeding the majority of the cattle. Once we had finished, he would turn the truck around and park it so we could watch the cattle eat. I would get out and grab my bucket to feed my tame cows, but of course others would circle around as well. But once we finished feeding, it was usually close to lunchtime, so we would head back to the house, eat, and play some cards. After lunch, we would usually go check some fence, water gaps, and their waterers, as well as drive the pastures to check the cattle over once again. And then in the evenings, we would head back out to the pasture to check them over and to make sure nothing had gotten out. Every summer and weekend, I would help my grandpa out on the farm. This is what our days mainly consisted of. Of course, when it was winter, we would have to feed hay and check on the cattle a lot more often. My grandpa didn't have anyone helping him with his farm. It was just him and occasionally me. But because he cares and knows how to maintain his cattle operation, he's able to uphold it. Many cattle farms are growing due to good management and are able to keep reproduction rates high, like Vendondo states. Over the years, I've been very fortunate to be able to help my grandpa out with his farm, and I've had some of my favorite memories being able to spend time with my grandpa in our favorite place. So as I started to grow older and was in high school, I wasn't able to make it to the farm as much as I would have liked. I had really started to miss the farm scene my senior year in high school, so I decided to start showing cattle. I decided to use a few of my grandpa's cattle from his herd and bring them to Columbia, to our small farm. Every day before and after school, I would go to the barn and work with them. In the mornings before school, I would have to feed and water them, and then after school, I would have to bathe them, and then I would lead them around with the help of the four-wheeler. It got tiring having to go out there every day, but I couldn't miss a day. I couldn't leave them with no food and water. Some days I wanted to quit, but I tried to keep positive and tell myself it would be worth it in the end. As summer came around, my heifers were looking very good and fluffy. They were leading well and were getting fat. I ended up getting first and second in the county fair. I couldn't have been more happy. Looking back now, I had a lot of responsibility as a high school student, and the work I had put into it, and the year I spent working with them every day eventually paid off. What my grandpa had told me couldn't have been more accurate. To succeed in life, you have to work hard for the things you want. They won't just be handed to you. This has not only helped me in this scenario, but every time I think about quitting, I think about what he has told me and what it takes to succeed.